elections at the Electoral Commission and has been the national coordinator for CODEO for a number of years. Reverend Fred Degbe, Reverend Dr. Fred Degbe, who is also been a member of CODEO Advisory Board for many, many years and represented the Christian Council also for a number of years. And then Sheikh Aremia is not here, our acting co-chair of CODEO. He will be joining us shortly. But I also have Ambassador Francis Chega, who is also a member of the CODEO board and a senior fellow at CDD-Ghana. The other person who will be joining us later is General Coleman, who is the chair of the Civic Forum Initiative, which is also the secretariat is at IDEG, the Institute for Democratic Governance, represented also here by Mr. Patrick Okine, who is seated there. So we would like to now proceed and invite, are we settled? Ready to go? Okay. I should give you 1 minute. Okay. All right. Press conference is being organized by CODEO, which is the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, a group, a multi-stakeholder group of non-state actors who have been observing elections since 2000. And I'm sure everybody knows about CODEO. And then also the Civic Forum Initiative, which is also another domestic election watch body that has also been observing elections for many years. And then the Star Ghana Foundation, which I think you all know about. So it's these three groups that are today here to have a joint press briefing on the president's appointment of 3 new members to the Electoral Commission. Okay. So let me now invite Reverend Dr. Fred Degbe to come and give a statement. And then from the audience.
Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen, and peace be to you all in the name of our triune God. As has been stated already, this is a press briefing by our 3 organizations. We thank you for honoring our invitation to this press briefing. We have invited you here today as independent, non-partisan civil society organizations and as citizens with a long track record of helping to safeguard the peace and integrity of our democratic electoral processes, to express our concern and displeasure about the recent appointments to the Electoral Commission of Ghana made by President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as announced on March 20th, 2023. For reasons we shall explain shortly, we would like to register our strong disapproval of and collective opposition to 2 of the announced appointments. We wish to note that at the outset, public and cross-party trust and confidence in the political neutrality and impartiality of an electoral management body, AMB for short, and for that matter, in the ability of that body to deliver free, fair, and credible elections is a cardinal principle in the pillar of an effective democratic election architecture. In Ghana's case, incremental progress in building public trust and confidence in the EC can be credited for our enviable record of steady democratic progress in the areas of elections over the course of the last 30 years. Our evolving tradition of peaceful acceptance of electoral outcomes, as well as peaceful turnover and transfer of power following hotly contested elections, would not have been possible if the EC was widely believed or perceived, whether in its conduct or in its composition or leadership, to be partisan or vulnerable to partisan manipulation or bias. There are well-known instances, including in other sister countries in Africa, where a failure to endanger credible cross-party trust and confidence in the electoral management body has provoked violent and tragic conflict in the wake of disputed and discredited election results. We must do nothing to invite a similar fate in our country. Some have tried to downplay the concerns associated with these latest problematic appointments by arguing that the appointees in question cannot change any electoral outcome, or that it is voters that determine election results, not electoral officers in charge of counting or collating results. This is an unfortunate and rather cavalier response to the grave concerns we raise here. If it did not matter who sat on the Electoral Commission, we could put anybody at all on it, and the appointing authority would not need the advice of a Council of State in the appointment process. Indeed, the overwhelming evidence, both from our own experience in this Fourth Republic and from other countries in Africa, shows that counting and collation of election results, not just the voting process, are the principal sources of electoral disputes and election-related violence and conflict. We must emphasize that when it comes to trust and confidence in an election management body, the composition and membership of the EMB matters greatly. Moreover, appearances and perceptions matter just as much as reality, especially in the reality of one's impartiality or independence. One's impartiality or independence is often practicably unprovable. The history of the evolution of our own electoral processes in this Fourth Republic, in fact, counsels against any attempt to downplay or trivialize the importance of cross-party and public trust in the EC and its independence. We recall that the new republic that was born on the 7th of January 1993 was born in partisan controversy and social division. Believing that the elections to choose the first president of the Fourth Republic had been rigged in favor of the Rawlings regime, the main opposition party proclaimed the outcome of the November 1992 presidential elections as stolen verdict and boycotted the ensuing parliamentary elections. The EC that emerged in 1993 was therefore tainted with suspected complicity in an alleged stolen election. It took a good deal of collective effort and reform to build cross-party public trust and confidence in the EC, enough to convince the opposition to return to compete again in 1996. In recent times, however, Afrobarometer surveys have recorded declining levels of public trust in the EC. Trust ratings for the EC have shown a steady decline since 2008. In 2004, close to half, that's 48% of Ghanaians, trusted the EC. The EC's trust ratings reduced by 8 points to 40% in 2008. In 2012, this dropped drastically to 27%. The Commission's trust rating continued to trend downward in 2014, decreasing that year to 18%. The EC's trust ratings saw a boost in 2017 to 25%, but still significantly lower than its previous years. The slight increase in trust ratings for the EC was, unfortunately, short-lived. In 2019, trust in the Commission dropped to 21%, and in 2022, the most recent survey, public trust in the EC dropped to an all-time low of 10%. Trust in the EC is too important for our democratic and social peace and stability for it to remain this low or get worse. Ladies and gentlemen, building and sustaining trust and confidence in an election management body is a delicate business because the impartiality or independence of an EMB or any office officials is often difficult to establish or prove. Appearances naturally assume great weight in assessing the independence or impartiality of an EMB or its officials. In some jurisdictions, this concern is addressed by ensuring overt cross-party representation and balance in the electoral management body. The framers of our Constitution preferred a different approach, one that disavows or rejects open partisan representation in the composition of the EC. Thus, we have opted for a non-partisan and independent EC, one in which political parties are not allocated seats or slots. Under our model, the power to appoint persons to the EC is given to the President to be exercised on the advice of the Council of State. It is our considered view that using that appointing power to appoint known partisans or persons with severe partisan conflict of interest relationships into the EC undermines the spirit of non-partisanship that underpins the model of EMB that the framers of our Constitution have left us. Contrary to views expressed in certain quarters, the designation of the President as the appointing authority subject to the advice of the Council of State does not mean that the President, being a party politician, is free to appoint to the EC persons who are known partisans or whose partisan affiliations create an apparent conflict of interest in the performance of their duties on an independent and non-partisan EC. It is worthy of note that under our Constitution, the President, who is both head of government and head of state, is made the appointing authority over a wide and diverse range of appointments. In making some of these appointments and nominations, notably appointments to the cabinet and other ministerial positions, as well as to positions such as district chief executive, there's no question, given the party political nature of those positions, that the President makes such appointments in his political role and capacity as head of government. After all, these are the appointees with whom the President, as chief executive, is going to run the country on a day-to-day basis. The occupants of these political executive branch office serve as agents of the President, and it is his pleasure, However, in making certain other appointments, notably the appointments stated under Articles 44 and 70 of the Constitution, which include appointments to the EC, the framers intended that the President would do so wearing the statesman's hat of a head of state, not the everyday politician's hat of a head of government. In this regard, the 1992 Constitution follows the model and practice first established under the 1969 Constitution and followed in subsequent constitutions, where appointments to a host of politically neutral and independent offices, including the Electoral Commission, are entrusted to the President in his capacity as head of state, to be exercised on the advice of a non-partisan Council of State. It is instructive that in the specific case of the chairman, deputy chairman, and other members of the Electoral Commission, the President's appointing power under Article 70B of the 1992 Constitution is to be exercised not merely, and I quote, in consultation with, but on the advice of the Council of State. The spirit of the Article 70B is unmistakable. Appointments to the EC must be treated with exceptional care, having regard to the extraordinary sensitive and delicate nature of the role and responsibility entrusted to the EC. In light of the foregoing, it is our considered and strongly held view that the position that appointment to the independent and non-partisan EC of persons who are known partisans or who have a partisan cloud over their heads is inconsistent with the spirit of the Constitution. Furthermore, such appointments risk undermining cross-party and public trust and confidence in the EC, and thus pose a danger to our evolving multi-party democracy. It is for all the foregoing reasons that we register our disapproval of an opposition to the appointment of Dr. Peter Apiahene and Hajia Salima Ahmed Tijani as members of the Electoral Commission of Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to examine briefly the details of the appointed persons, background of the new EC members. The three new members of the Commission sworn in and announced by the President on March 30th, 2023 are Hajia Salima Ahmed Tijani, Dr. Peter Apiahene, and Reverend Ikuya Ofori Boateng. They fill the vacancies on the commission created by the earlier retirement of Mrs. Hajia Saadatu Maida, Mr. Ebenezer Agrifin, and Mrs. Rebecca Kabuki Ajalo. Unhelpfully, the announcement of the new appointments was not accompanied by detailed biographical and other background information about each of the appointees. We are indeed unsure if the Council of State itself was provided with all these necessary background information it is expected to have in order to effectively discharge its constitutionally mandated advice function in respect of these appointments, particularly where, as in this instance, an appointment is not subject to vetting and approval by Parliament. We believe it is imperative that sufficient biographical and other background information on each nominee or appointee be provided to the public and any relevant body by the appointing authority. In the absence of adequate official biographical information on the appointees, we too, like the public and media generally, have been compelled to rely on the internet searches, social media, and other unofficial sources to learn more about the appointees. This is what we know so far about each of the new appointees. Dr. Peter Apiahene. According to his LinkedIn page, Dr. Peter Apiahene is an assistant professor / senior lecturer at the University of Energy and Natural Resources, Sunyani, where he heads the Department of Computer Science and Informatics. From his LinkedIn page, we also learn that Dr. Apiahene holds a PhD in computer science and an MPhil in information technology from both the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, both from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Since the announcement of his appointment as a member of the EC, social media postings have revealed that Dr. Piahini is an activist of the New Patriotic Party in the Bono region. In one social media comment on January 2021 headed Dr. Piahini for Bono region, Dr. Piahini is featured on an NPP labeled flyer as one of the 6 prospects for the position of the Bono regional minister. The commenter who put up that post states that the Bono region and the NPP party need much more energetic and vibrant leadership to help make the region to the desired goals, to take the region to the desired goals, and urges all to rally behind Dr. Piahini for the Bono region minister to achieve more. In other social media video clip that has gone viral since his appointment, Dr. Piahini is seen and heard participating in a radio program, Anopa Nimdie Juaso, on Nimdie FM 95.1 Sunyani, as a self-identified NPP partisan and activist in the Bono region, and naming one Kwame Bafo, popularly known as Abrenye DC, as the chairman. Predictably, the appointment of Dr. Piahini has generated a heated public debate in both mainstream and social media. The National Democratic Congress, NDC, has denounced the appointment while the NPP has defended it. Hajia Salima Ahmed Tijani, nee Salima Sani Mahama. According to a graphic online report, Hajia Salima Tijani is a banker with the Agricultural Development Bank, ADB. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Integrated Development Studies from the University of Development Studies, UDS, and an MBA in Project Management from GIMPA, and is currently an MSc Finance student at the Accra Business School. Internet searches and other social media exchanges since the announcement on her appointment have revealed additional relevant information about Madam Salima Tijani. She is said to be married to one Sheikh T.B. Damba, a leading member of the NPP, who was formerly the second national vice chairman of the party and served as Ghana's ambassador to Saudi Arabia from 2017 to 2021. Madam Salima Tijani's mother, that's Hajia Samata Gifty Bukari, was the first elected woman, first vice chairperson of the NPP in the northern region, while her sister, Hajia Abibata Shani Mahama Zakaria, who is currently the CEO of Microfinance and Loans Center, MASLOC, contested the 2020 NPP primaries in the Yendi constituency and has already publicly announced her intention to contest again for the Yendi seat in 2024. Madam Salima Ahmed Tijani's multiple close familial relationships with leading and active NPP figures raise apparent conflict of interest concerns, and for that matter, a legitimate perception and appearance of a lack of independence. The Reverend Ikuya Ofori-Boateng. Reverend Ikuya Bima Ofori-Boateng is Director of Programs for the Anglican Diocese of Accra. A priest, she holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Engineering Physics from Miami University, Florida, USA, a Master of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from Virginia Tech, USA, and an MBA from Indiana University, the USA. She also earned a Master of Arts degree in Ministry from the Trinity Theological Seminary in Legon, Ghana. As a priest, Reverend Ikuya Ofori-Boateng serves at the Holy Trinity Cathedral, Accra. She has hosted a gospel show talk, that's a hashtag 995 The Word, on Asasi Radio 995 since June 2020. We have found nothing problematic in her background. Demands. We are concerned about the non-transparent and non-inclusive nature of the appointments to key independent constitutional bodies like the EC. Although the relevant letter of the Constitution is unhelpfully scanty, the spirit of the Constitution that underpins these provisions leaves no doubt that, having regard to the functions assigned the EC, as well as the Commission's independent character, non-partisanship, both actual and perceived, is a non-negotiable principle and consideration that must guide the appointing authority in the selection of the Commission's members. While we support calls for a constitutional amendment to make the process of nomination and appointment to the EC explicitly inclusive and transparent, we believe that there is room, even in the current constitutional arrangement, for the process to be inclusive and transparent. We propose that in filling a vacancy on the EC and other independent constitutional bodies, the President, acting in his role as head of state, propose and make public the names and biographical information of candidates to be considered by the Council of State. In keeping with the spirit of his role as head of state, the President should consult key stakeholders, including political parties represented in Parliament, in coming up with the list of candidates to be submitted to the Council of State. The Council should then invite persons and other inputs on the proposed individuals from the public as part of a process of vetting and shortlisting the candidates. The Council of State would then shortlist and rank the final candidates and make appropriate recommendations to the President. In an amended constitutional process, the nominee should be required to receive the approval of Parliament prior to their appointment by the President. What we wish to emphasize here is that nothing about the current constitutional provision and arrangement relating to the EC requires or excuses the appointment of partisans and other unsuitable persons to the membership of the EC. 2, we are painfully aware that voluntary and constitutionally grounded revocation of these unfortunate and democratically problematic EC appointments by the President is extremely unlikely. However, nothing stops the affected appointees, namely Dr. Peter Piahini and Hajia Salima Ahmed Tijani, from voluntarily and honorably resigning from membership of the EC. This will be in the supreme interest of our country's continued democratic progress, election peace and credibility, and indeed the overall national interest. While both Dr. Piahini and Madam Salima Ahmed Tijani meet the generic benchmark qualification stipulated under Article 44(1), that is the same qualification one must satisfy to be a member of Parliament, we believe strongly that, having regard to the independent and non-partisan nature of our Electoral Commission and its mandate, the spirit of the Constitution demands far more in the way of one's suitability to be a member of the EC. We accordingly call on Dr. Peter Piahini and Hajia Salima Ahmed Tijani to do the honorable thing and resign. Conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, elections are an indispensable anchor of our democracy. Elections run by election management bodies that suffer from a trust and credibility crisis tend to produce not just divide and potentially destabilizing election results, they also produce governments with low levels of legitimacy and an embittered and polarized politics and society, all of which make the business of governing and building national unity in the post-election period tough and rough. Already, as Afrobarometer data have shown, trust in our EC has been on the decline in recent years. In order for citizens to continue to trust the EC, the credibility and independence of the EC, including, importantly, the appearance of partisan neutrality, are paramount and must be safeguarded. It is against this background that we have, over the years, consistently advocated for a transparent and inclusive process for appointing persons to fill vacancies on the EC. The appointment to the EC of individuals known as widely perceived to be partisan or party-based can only go to deepen public mistrust in the EC. We believe strongly that the resignations of Dr. Peter Piahini and Salima Ahmed Tijani are a necessary step in the efforts to rebuild trust and confidence in the EC, thereby guarantee the peace of our elections and the effectiveness of the Commission in the discharge of its extremely important national mandate. God bless our homeland, Ghana. Long live Ghana. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Fred Degbe, for the statement. I know it's a long statement, but I think it's important, given the gravity of the matters, to be clear in the position of CODEO, CFI, and Star Ghana. Let me take the opportunity to acknowledge Major General retired Coleman, who is chairman of the Civic Forum Initiative with the Secretariat at IDEC, who just joined us. So, Major, you're welcome. Before I open up for questions and comments to the high table, let me just make some additional notes on the trust ratings for the EC, so that that's also factored in. So normally in the Afrobarometer surveys, there's a list of institutions that respondents are asked to rate their trust in those institutions, and the EC is one of them. And you have to indicate whether you trust the institution a lot, you trust it somewhat, you don't trust it at all, and so on. So this ratings that you see is on people who are showing a strong preference, a strong trust for the EC. That is, that they trust the EC a lot. And you can see that beginning from in 2004, when you had 48%, which is a very strong positive endorsement of the EC. Since then, those who are saying they trust the EC a lot has reduced all the way to 10%. So that is just an additional note that we need to point out. With that in mind, let me just open the floor for any questions from media or stakeholders who are here. Yes, sir. And please identify yourself and then your question. Sorry, I didn't. Is there a mic that... there's no mic, so you... Obed, yes. Yes, Obed.
So part of the statement suggested that the representation on the election management body should include members of some political parties.
No, that's not correct. So maybe, that's why I said it's a long statement. So the idea is that the model that Ghana has chosen does not it does not allow for partisans to be represented on Electoral Commission in places like Liberia and other countries where you have members, a representation of, it's like an IPAC that runs like an Electoral Commission. Yes. So ours is supposed to be independent. Yeah. That's right. Yes. Yeah. Yes, madam, please, and identify yourself and then your question.
My name is
That's right.
In the statement, it was said that you know that a revocation is highly unlikely, and you are urging the two to resign.
Sure. Sure.
I can also see that that is highly unlikely.
Sure.
So, what do you think can be done in terms of checks and balances, so that despite the seeming affiliation of these people to the governing party, it doesn't affect the outcome of the election?
So that is a matter that we have discussed and will discuss further. I think what the CODEO board and CODEO and CFI and other collaborators are saying is that we want, the principles and the spirit of the Constitution to be respected, and that's for every Ghanaian. So the individuals who have been appointed themselves also have an obligation to support, the sustenance of this democracy. So I think the first call is on them, and the reason why a revocation is not even feasible in the current context is because the appointment has already been done. If it was for the chairperson or any of the deputies, you have to go through an elaborate, process to remove her. For the non-executive members, they basically are covered by the Public Services Commission processes until they retire. So that's why revocation is not one that, and of course, given all the issues we have said about the trust of the Electoral Commission and the independence, we also don't want the executive interfering in that way to be removing members of the commission. So the first option for us is the individuals recognizing their obligations and doing the right thing. I think if that is not, then there are other options that CODEO and CFI and Star Ghana and other stakeholders have to consider. That is something that the board and the association would look at. But the point is that the current state of affairs is not tenable, and we need to find a way to resolve it. Yeah. There's a gentleman, you had your hands up, or was it the same question? Okay, so that's been addressed. Okay. Yes.
My name is Sarah.
Sarah. Yes.
From TV3.
Yes, Sarah.
Just a follow-up to the question.
Yes.
I believe CODEO and your partners have already thought of the possibilities if they do not resign.
Yes.
And available options will be adopting to ensure the right thing is done.
Sure.
But before we get to that stage, if they do not,
Yes.
and we do not find any way of getting them out,
Yes.
and the trust in the EC keeps declining, like you said,
Yes.
what should be the repercussions on upcoming elections in the country?
So I think we have to crawl before we walk. So I think the first step is, of course, to indicate our disapproval of the current state of affairs and ask for corrective measures to be taken. I think that the individuals themselves should be given that opportunity, and then we see what actions they take. But certainly, we are going into an election, and we don't want this subsisting. So there would have to be other steps taken, to bring this matter. I don't know if you've been following what's happening in Kenya, but in the post-election, given all the challenges that was experienced, even though the president has power to appoint new electoral commissioners, he has asked the parliamentary committee to set up a bipartisan group so that there can be a bipartisan arrangement on who to appoint to the electoral commission. So these matters are not just matters that only are restricted to Ghana. The dangers for all of us is palpable, right? So I think that everybody that is concerned about Ghana's democracy, and this is 30 years of the Fourth Republic. So we all have to have learned the lessons, not just from Ghana from 92, but also in the sub-region. You know, to take actions that are in the interest of, you know, protecting our own stability and our development. And I think, you know, Ghanaians, we are right-thinking people, and that's why I think the first step is to appeal to those individuals to appreciate the circumstances, the gravity of the matter, so that they take corrective actions. And if that's not possible, then I think stakeholders can go a step further, you know, to deal with those matters. You now have your question. Okay, then I'll come to you, sir. Yes. From where, please? Okay.
So until when are you giving those people the laxity to
No, I mean, I think, and remember that even the media here are stakeholders, right? This is not, you know, something that you are just going to force on anybody's throat, and we have to come to that appreciation of the importance of an independent electoral commission. That's as simple as that. You see, so that when we take these actions, we understand why we are doing it. It's not just because you want to hold somebody, you know, ask somebody to just resign or something. I think the appreciation is important, and that's why it's such a lengthy statement, because we are trying to let everybody, the political elites, all of us, civil society, media, understand how important the Electoral Commission's independence, whether perception or real, is, if we are going to continue to, you know, have this democracy for the next 30 years. So I think this is the best way to approach it, and we also expect that the media understand and appreciate, and they will ask the right questions when the politicians and so on will come, you know, trying to insist that this is the right way to go. Okay, so we're not going to give you timelines of what the next steps are. That's obviously not the approach, but it's certainly take one step at a time. The ball is in the court now of the two individuals. We are asking that they resign, and then if they don't resign, you know, the board has to take other steps. I hope your question is also not a repeat of this one. Okay. George, yes. Yes, George.
Indeed, the trust of the people to the EC is actually declining. From what you say, do you think 2024 elections can be held 100%?
We have how many months? I think we still have about 18 months or so, or more than that, before the next election. Right, so I think there's a lot of work that can be done to improve trust in the rate, and I think steps like this can improve the trust in the Electoral Commission. If indeed the individuals resign, it helps to improve the trust. But it is work that can be done between now and the next election. I don't think it's all lost, you know. So we should continue to work, and that when I say all stakeholders, it's not just us as election observers, as CSOs, but also the media, you know, to bring that attention to these matters. Any more questions, please? And members of the board, General, do you want to make any comments or statements? Okay. All right. So if there are no further questions, I think we'll bring the press briefing to an end, and we'll try and arrange any additional interviews and so on after we close. Thank you very much for coming. Yeah.